This is That One Audition with Alyshia Ochse. Because that's what I was actually so excited to talk to you. Somebody else that works on the show with me has worked with you on a show before. And she was like, you know what I'm most excited to hear? She's like, it feels like her career started really popping off right when this self-taping arena kind of came into play. So I was so curious because we were just talking about like Zoom chemistries and like the one I just had right now. It's such a different beast than when we used to go in the room. But I think you probably went in the room for AP Bio, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting. It was like all the way up until I really started working with Netflix because AP Bio had come out prior to COVID, and then we filmed 2 seasons during COVID, and then everything really shifted, and it was such an interesting like paradigm shift, not just for me, but like every actor I know, like just talking to
Yes.
everyone and getting insights on their experience. It's like it really felt like a new thing to have to tackle and figure out, you know.
Well, even coming from being on a show every day, like I tell actors, that are so against the self-taping or Zoom world, look, Zoom chemistries aren't ideal. It's hard. We're going to have some chemistry right now, you and I, but it's a little bit more challenging to have that chemistry. But the self-tape, like you have to get on set, you have to know where your light is, you have to hit your mark, you have to understand framing. But even it's a different muscle when you're coming from doing a couple of seasons of a show and then you get put back out in the wild to do it
Yeah.
yourself. But I kind of want to reverse engineer. So I want to know a girl from Oregon who decides to come to Los Angeles to be an actress. Like, was this always the dream? And give me like, I need that fresh, like those first few footsteps from like, I want to do this to like getting to LA and starting to audition.
Totally. Well, growing up in Oregon, I was actually a dancer for several years. And so I had been doing performance art for a while and primarily Indian classical dance, but also ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop. But the real reason I wanted to be an actor is when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Magic School Bus. And I really just believed you got turned into a cartoon in a machine. Like this, my imagination was crazy. So I really thought, and then my parents were like, well, you have to like audition for it still and like things like that, but they didn't know anything about this world. So, I went through school like trying to do things in theater and not really sure like, do people actually make careers out of this? Like that's a whole other world, especially when you're moving to LA, which most of us are. And so I remember I had taken some classes at a theater with a teacher who specialized in TV film. And then I kind
Who was it? Do you remember?
her name is Sandra Peabody.
Mhm.
And it was great. Like it was Meisner style acting, Meisner technique. And I remember like I did my first auditions in town for like commercials and like little movies in town with her. And that was like the first time I was like, whoa, this is different than just getting up on a stage and performing and doing whatever. And you got to be way more real with what you're doing. And so I finished college in Oregon. I actually majored in marketing, but I graduated early to move to LA because I was like, I'm not getting any younger and I want to get out there and have an adventure. And luckily, while I was still in college, I got my union status. I worked on a couple shows up there and then I moved down. And really, it's a lot of luck and it's opportunity and preparation. So I really got lucky with
So
that.
when did you move to LA?
August 2015. It'll be 10 years this summer. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then AP Bio is 2018, right?
2017. Yeah.
2017. So within 2 years. Okay. I want to hear then, how did you get an agent? So many people, like I did the same thing. I was like, I'm going to finish college earlier. I need to get out there. And then I got here and I was like, wait, it's not Disneyland. Agents aren't just like popping out at the airport being like, you get to go audition. Like really learning the business was a whole different thing. But that was even before Google could tell you how to be an actor. So
Totally.
when you got here, if you were working with, is Sandra, is that what you just said her name was?
Sandra.
Were you able to get an agent or a manager? How did you go about that first?
So Sandra pretty much only repped people in Portland, and she'd had connections in LA several years before, but she pretty much was like, I got nothing for you. Like, you got to go down there and figure it out. And I was like, okay. And I remember while I was in college, actually, Backstage used to have forums that people had so much good info. Like, I printed things out. I was like studying, like, that was my exam. So when I came down here, I wanted to treat it like, okay, this is your first year in college. Like, don't have expectations, but go into it being willing to learn the experience. and put yourself out there because that's the one thing everybody said. They were like, there's no one size shoe fits all. There's no one guaranteed trajectory. So getting agents, I mean, I truly cold emailed and this was like right at the tail end of physical submissions too. It was like the very end of it. So I remember I spent a bunch of money like sending out my physical headshots to a bunch of people. And I'd always like I love my agents. I've been with the same ones since I moved to LA actually. And I'd always had them high up on my list. Their momentum, they are a boutique agency, but I liked that when I looked at their clients, because I did a lot of research on who they were repping and where they started. And I was like, oh, they really seem to want to grow with you. And that was something that was really important. So like I met with a few agents, but they were the ones that I just was like, I feel like as people, we connect first. And that's really important. If you're pitching me to people, you got to know who I am a little bit, like get an
Yeah.
idea or what my personality is like, not just my face. And yeah, we're very close now. So I got lucky with them. And I signed with them about 2 weeks after I moved to LA, actually. So that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
That's incredible. And
I got,
and the fact that they're still with you.
yeah, they have been cheerleading all the way. And they're also how I met my manager. He had worked with one of my agents on a few different clients before. And he's had some very successful clients. And he used to work at a bigger management firm, but he had decided to step away and just be his own, like just focus on his own clients. And he was looking through their materials and he saw my stuff. And I remember we met up and we hit it off right away. And we went over, he was the first person that really talked to me on the business side of things, just real cold, hard facts and looking at my auditions and like, these are the things I got called back for. These are the things I did. And what can we maybe do to like shift things a bit? And he's the one who got me the AP Bio audition. So like, you
Okay.
know,
This I want to get into a little bit more if you're willing to go there. Because I feel like a lot of actors that I consult with or write in from the show, they're like, how do I pick a good teammate? And then how do I conduct business with them? And I've heard so many stories in the last like couple of weeks about managers that are a little bit more involved, and then managers or agents that are a little less like, you do you, I'm getting you the appointment, that's that.
yeah,
You saying that, okay, you guys go through your auditions, see where you were getting callbacks. What other information was he giving you that helped? Because it sounds like he paved the way for AP Bio to like, that was a win for both of you. So I want to
totally.
hear more
Honestly,
detail.
yeah. He's been super involved, like in every, like truly managing every aspect of my career. And the biggest thing, because I'd met with a couple of managers before him where I felt like it was cool. They were all like excited about me. But when I asked them about like, how would you help me develop my career? It was kind of like crickets. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And the biggest thing I've learned, whether you're working with agents or a manager or publicists or anything, you want people who are really excited about you, like actually excited about you. And if they are, it will actually bleed through with everything. That passion is there to where it's like we will discuss, like when I do these self tapes, I'll send them to him first. I'm like, what do you think? Should I retape this? Like, is my hair looking crazy? Like, what do you think? And like the little things. And he's like, well, and we'll figure out tweaks together if it's something that needs tweaking or if it's like he's like, no, I feel really good about it. Like when I'm looking at your performance, I see the character. I'm not seeing you trying to act. And I feel like, and also transparency, like being able to talk with him about projects that I might be interested in, even early on in my career, like the kinds of roles that I wanted to go for. And he really has gone above and beyond to try to make sure that I get at least a chance to try to flex those muscles. And I feel like
Yes.
it's the biggest thing I always come back to is like in this town, anybody can call themselves a manager. Whereas to be an agent, you have to be accredited and you have to go through these things. So it can be really flattering to have someone come up to you and be like, I'd love to manage your career, but when you sit with them, are they really excited about you? And then past the excitement, do they have experience managing people in their careers, building them up from being new to like having an established presence? And I think that's a big thing. He had experience with that and he'd had experience specifically building people up to that point. So I was like, I was really, and just hearing him talk about it too, I was like, oh, you actually are paying attention to these stats and helping me figure out what my game plan should be.
I love that he was able to sit with you and be like, okay, you got called into these offices, the callbacks were here. Then did you guys have a strategy of like, okay, well, here's the other offices that we haven't gotten into yet. Let's figure out how we're going to get in there. you guys were collectively kind of coming up with the strategy. I like that he was involving you in that strategy and in the numbers game because it is a numbers game. I know you said that it's luck. Yes, it's luck, but it's also understanding how the business works. And if you're starting to get momentum in one office, okay, let's keep going back. So was it for AP Bio? Let's start there. Wendy
Yeah.
O'Brien. Was it Wendy O'Brien who cast you in that?
So it was actually the first season was Jill Anthony Thomas, and
Ah,
yeah, and so I remember Eric calling me on the phone. And he was like, "Here's the thing about Jill. She's tough, but she is fair. If she sees something in you, if she really believes in you, she will, and she gives people chances." And AP Bio was such an interesting audition. So it was my first
yeah.
full pilot season in LA. The previous year, I experienced pilot season. I got up for like a couple of co-stars here and there, but it was my first year. I wasn't really expecting to do anything big in my first year, and I booked a co-star while I was out here. So I was like, okay, we got some movement. We'll see. But this audition was so interesting because it was like this untitled comedy pilot for NBC, and I had all these big names attached, like Seth Meyers and Mike O'Brien, and people I'd recognized at the time. Glenn Howerton and Patton Oswalt were not attached. So it's like it truly was like going in blind. And I, like most people, was such a big fan of like the NBC comedy block for so long. Like I loved Parks and Rec and The Office. But one thing I remember when I'd watch a lot of videos about how they cast those actors was like they did something different. They did something that stood out. They turned into a character, and it's a comedy. So
Right.
I it's so funny. I've worked so much in comedy because most of my training was in drama and like things like that. So I was like, how do I change this a little bit? And not a lot of people know this, but I actually went to Catholic school for like 8 years. And so
Me too.
it was like, I was like looking at this part and I was like, I could play this just like me being studious, but I feel like there's something kind of funny if I like invoke the Catholic schoolgirl that I was at one point. And I literally went in and I dressed with this headband and this crazy like button down shirt and like all these other things. And I walk into the room and there's the most beautiful Indian girls you've ever seen. And don't get me wrong, I know I'm pretty, but I felt like a toad next to them. And I felt good about it. I was like, okay, cool. I feel different. And it's going to allow me to lean into whatever these costume choices and that. Because when you're wearing a button down shirt, you're going to sit straight. And
You
there's all
absolutely
these.
do. Did you do the skirt too? Did you do the skirt or jumper where it was like
I did the skirt.
full girl?
Yep. So I
Mhm.
was like sitting with like very straight, very postured. And I just went in there. And when I was a kid, I really wanted to be Hermione Granger. So I was like, this is your chance. Like, just be really. And the biggest influence for that character was I watched Election with Reese Witherspoon. And so I kind of channeled that. And then I remember getting a call for the callback being like, they saw someone do this in the audition room and the producers really liked it. So they want you to do it kind of like Reese Witherspoon in Election. And I was like, well, that was me. I'm the one who did that. I got this.
So they gave you notes based on the thing that you did for the
Yeah.
callback. That's
They were giving
hilarious.
all the callback girls that note. And I was like, well, I'm the one who did that. So that's got to be good. But I still had to go through so many rounds of casting just to get to that point, just to get the offer. And then this was also when pilot season was the big thing, right? So it's like then you have to wait for the pilot to get picked up. And so there's all this uncertainty. But the biggest thing I remember, not just for me, but my castmates, they all talked about they were the ones who dressed up like a complete like character and leaned into it, but there's a realism to it. Like they weren't playing a caricature of it. They let the costume that they created for their audition really inform what they were doing. And they ended up liking it so much on the show, they ended up writing in some of the things that we naturally brought. They included headbands in my character's like main outfit. They made her outfit based on my audition wardrobe. And I was like, well, maybe I got something here, but yeah.
You did it. You did it. Well, okay. So on your first show, you guys, this is what I also love about television. The majority of that cast, you guys are mid 20s to late 20s playing high school.
Yeah, at the time.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the time. You guys go for a few seasons. Well, no, because then you have Dead Girls Detective Agency kind of comes in at the same time, right? A year later or the
Yeah.
same year? Is it the same year? Were you
I think it
doing
was the
both
same
shows at the
year.
same time?
Yeah, because we first did like a pilot pitch presentation at that, and it was like a proof of concept. And that was also through my manager. He was like, these producers are just really cool. And some of the things they do are really experimental. And if this sounds like something you're interested in, connecting with some badass women who are really like, because he knows that's something I'm really passionate about. He was like, it may not be a Netflix series or a network TV show, but I think there's potential for you to find people you really like working with through this process. So it's like that, those kinds of things he'll like put me up for if I'm interested. He'll have a talk with me and I was like, that sounds cool. Yeah, I want to try it out. But it was definitely like I didn't film them at the same time. It was like I finished one and then I'd have a month off and then Dead
Then you
Girls
went
would
to the
film.
other ones.
Yeah.
Okay. So, because I was gonna say, how are you juggling both? But my question was, when you're of a certain age and then we're playing much younger,
Hmm.
then some people will start to get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm 30 and I'm playing 18. I really would like to play something more my age, but you look so young, which is incredible. I think it's the one of the best gifts that we can have in this industry is to be
For
able to look
sure.
much younger because then our careers go a lot longer.
Right.
But since your manager is so involved, was there a conscious decision to say, okay, I'm done with high school. I want to divert my attention. And then what is the audition? What are the auditions that he starts bringing you at that place in order to transition out?
Yeah, we definitely had that conversation
You
multiple
did.
times because I actually had tested and was like multiple times for a lead of a Netflix show I won't name that's very popular and I'm a huge fan, but it was another high school role. And funnily enough, they ended up filming on the AP Bio studio, like in our stage. So I was like, oh, I would have been right back in that classroom. And I was at the same time, like on the one hand, you're like, oh, I didn't get the role. But on the other hand, I was like, I'm kind of glad because I'm getting closer to 30 at this point. And I was like, I don't want to be seen as just this high schooler and then I'm trying to be taken seriously as an adult actor. It's definitely something every actor who's played teenagers has faced. And it
Mhm.
was interesting. Like we then started targeting a lot of guest stars and there were a lot of really cool series regular roles then that I would get pitched for as an adult. And, we just updated some of my materials to look more adult and it's hard because my demo reel was like 90% AP bios at this point. Like I
It
had
is. I
everything.
found it and I was like, this is amazing. How old is she really? Like, and then just seeing certain things and that I get that a lot where people really want to transition and getting the industry to see you differently, sometimes it takes a lull in your career. Like I always say that there's like peaks and valleys, or I always say there's surfing terms, right? You catch a wave,
Yeah.
you ride that wave till you get to
Hmm.
shore. And then you're at shore and you're like, I wonder what the next wave's going to be. Is it going to be the same kind of wave? Do I want to wait for a different wave? You can kind of put yourself in a little bit of an off season while you're waiting for the industry to catch up to your new essence of what you want to do because you can get tired of.
Absolutely. And we also, as human beings, we all have our own, like, we all have different eras of who we are, right? Like, you look back to who you were at 20 and you're like, I'm not that person at all anymore. But there's the elements of you that kind of grew up with you. And yeah, for sure. Like, there was, I mean, even after Dead Girls, the first project I did with Netflix was I was playing high school again.
Was
Um,
Boo Bitch? Is that
Boobish. Yeah. And that
First of
was
all, I loved this. Okay, I want to know when you got the script, what did you think? Or what was your first thought on this?
So it was so funny because I'd heard so many people in town were auditioning for this project. And then it came into my inbox and I thought it was so funny. And I could also see that like it might be a little tricky to play with. I had a lot of fun playing with that audition because growing up, I was not the popular girl. So I felt like I was in on the joke a little bit. And
Mhm.
also because I was like, this is a human being still. So I want to bring some of her insecurities to light because I remember what it was like to be that age and to be insecure and like project everything out. And also I had just watched Jennifer's Body again. So I was like, I'm kind of in the mood to channel her a little bit. And that apparently worked. They loved that the whole angle and they had like a Jennifer's Body poster in one of the characters' room as like a nod to that, which was fun because I told them about it. But that was after we had been making a concentrated effort, and I had been at this point testing to play adult characters. But for me, I was like, Netflix has all these great shows that I would love to like break into their world. And also it has so many great actors attached. Like I had been such a fan of Lana Condors for so long. And I loved the writers. I loved Awkward when it was out. And I was like, this sounds like a fun, it's a limited series too. And I was
Yes.
like, I don't know, after this if I'll be working or not, but this is a really cool opportunity. I don't really want to say no to it. And it's fun. Like I get to wear all these fun costumes and be Regina George a little bit. And it was really cool. And I didn't have to test for it, which was also crazy.
Wait, tell
After
me why.
I had done so many network tests for so many shows at this point, right? Like, and I had thought like with AP Bio, I had to test to get it. And so I was like, well, it's not going to be if it's easy, you're not going to get it. But I literally did one audition and then they wanted to meet with me and over Zoom, actually. It was a self-tape. And then it was over Zoom they met with me and they were like, we really loved your tape. Like you figured out the character that we in the way that we were hoping, like it's kind of satirical and it's not so serious and you kind of nailed that. And I was like, oh, well, great, I'll take that. And they were so close to filming too. I think they were really like, we want to find someone who understands the satire of this project and who's willing to play into that a little bit. And
Well, I
yeah,
gotta ask, did your manager help with that one since it's a self-tape now? Because now we're really transitioning to the self-tape world.
yeah.
You had all these ideas. Were those all of these ideas that you had you conceptually put into the self-tape? And was your manager ever to give some notes at this point? Or were you just kind of like, we're trying to transition out of this part of my career, whatever? Because it's always the auditions that you're like, whatever,
That
like
you end up getting.
always,
Yeah,
always. So
yeah.
from the self-taping perspective, was that more of a collaboration as well with him to kind of conceptualize some of this? Where did the satire of it, like you kind of already, I think, spoke about it, but just kind of knowing this world from growing up, Jennifer's Body, that just is what excited you. So that's why you were going to swing for the fence in that regard.
That and like just overall, I was like, this is a limited series, so it's not something I'm going to be locked into for 4 or 5 years where I'll be seen as a teenager forever. And again, it was like really about the creators and the actors involved that I was like, I really want to connect with them and play with them and see what comes about. So this was one where I did all the work myself, but I did send him the tape after and he was like, no notes. That's all he wrote back. He was like, no notes. And I was like, well, cool. Which is not
Yes.
always the case. I'll always get notes and usually like, and even even my best auditions, it's like, well, okay, if you want to target this, but usually it's like, if I get a no notes, I'm like, okay, I've made him happy. I've made my agents happy. They like the tape because they're also just as involved. One of them will literally, my manager will look a lot at performance and my agent will be like, okay, let's look at presentation. Your lighting was kind of bad. You know what I mean? Like, and that wasn't at the start of my career. My manager really was who was that person at the start of my career, but now they all are very involved. But yeah, it's also like the script was such an homage to a lot of the movies we grew up with. So it's like,
Lauren's so good at that. She's so, so good. I've known her for a long time. I actually lived in her house. Like
oh,
she moved
really?
out and I moved into her house and she was writing Awkward in that house. And just how she sets up a show. I just love her. Her voice is so distinct. So distinct. That's why I loved Boo Bitch. It's so fun to do this research. And I'm like, oh, what's this show? It's not something I would normally watch. And it just clicks. It just works. It works.
It
Okay.
was funny. It was a really fun experience and a different kind of comedy than doing a sitcom in a classroom.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
filmed like a movie. It was a
It's
little
like
different.
Netflix comedy. There's a different kind of comedy on
There's a
Netflix.
different kind of comedy. Yeah.
Okay, so at what point then do you kind of become in the Netflix family? Is it after Boo Bitch? And is this when FUBAR kind of comes? I want to hear the whole audition story. I'm kind of leading you through your audition stories, but if there is that one audition, I'd love to hear it. But some of these, I also am just so curious.
Totally. Well, I also, at the same time as Boo Bitch, like just around then, had just signed with a voiceover agent and ended up, and like they didn't even know about Boo Bitch at the time because it was like so new. And somehow I ended up doing a Netflix voiceover, like an animated series at the same
At
time.
the
So at
same
that point,
time.
I was like, yeah, it was Met Cadet U. And it was such a cool experience. Like I mean, it took them 2 years to design it because they were doing these like new animations in Japan, like stuff way beyond my knowledge, but it was so cool. And I think at that point I was like, okay, I think I might be like a foot in through the Netflix door, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see how things pan out.
Well, and
FUBAR.
just for curiosity, because I do want to ask about that, since you signed with a voiceover agent, did they guide you on this audition? Did they help you? Was that one of your first? Because voiceover, it's almost more competitive than just our theatrical auditions.
It is.
Because so was that beginner's luck that this series kind of came together, or what was your process for learning how to literally audition for voiceovers?
Right. Well, when I first signed with them, it was like earlier that year, and I would go, this is like, it was so funny. I signed with them right before all the lockdowns happened. So I went into their office a lot to like do things in their booth and like kind of get familiar with it. But I learned I do have a pretty natural knack for voiceover because I would take the same approach that I would take for my regular auditions. Like you act it out. And the responses you'll get from casting will be dependent on like how real that sounds. But it's also hard to get a response from casting. I mean, I must have done 100 auditions before I even got the animated show. And even then, it's like I'll still audition now, and it's like I may or may not hear back. It's a harder world to break into, but it's a phenomenal world to break into. And so that was one where they reached out and they were like, we sent casting some of your other voice stuff. They're interested in you. Like, can you send this in? And the next thing I know, I'm getting an offer. So I don't totally know what the structure of voiceovers is like, but it is interesting how the roles I've gotten in my career since AP Bio have been a little easier. Whereas there's ones that I've chased down and I've tested, I've gotten almost all the way, and then it's silence. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Yes.
interesting how when the doors open, they just open all the way.
Well, I love calling it like development versus relevant. And I don't think it doesn't mean for me what it means to a lot of other people. Development means we're just learning. So like if
Mhm.
you were doing comedy for a while and all of a sudden now you want to switch over to like I use McConaughey for an example. Okay, great. He did rom-coms forever and then he was like, now I'm good. I want to go do
Yeah,
something more serious. He was in a developmental stage. And then there's a relevant stage where you've mastered something and then the industry just throws things at you. It's like, oh, okay, you were
yeah,
a series regular in AP Bio. Don't worry. Now all of this is really open to you. Okay.
yeah,
So, and then things just stick.
yeah,
You just have to hit that wave and things start sticking. It's then when you switch the wave, like, hello, I want to not play high school anymore. There's a wave switch. So that's
yeah.
why I'm so curious. Okay, so now
So
we're in
then
the
we get to
Netflix family.
FUBAR.
Yes, now we're in the Netflix family-esque. Like,
Ish. I mean, I wasn't totally sure, but I felt like they'd invited me to a bunch of their like Asian American events and things, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm in. We'll see.
mhm.
But it was so interesting. FUBAR really was that one audition for me because I had to audition and fight for it, but I didn't know at the time that the showrunner was a fan of AP Bio and had actually written the character with me in mind. But
Stop.
he didn't think I was available, so he didn't even see my tape at the beginning. So I still had to audition and call back. And then I met with him and he was like, actually, I wrote this based on you. And
No
yeah,
way.
I had no
Okay, so
idea.
you not knowing any of this information. God, don't you love, this is what I tell actors all the time too, even myself. I'm like, somebody's writing something for you. You have no idea what people are watching or seeing. Your work begets work. That sentence really like rings true. Like you don't know which one of your films or television shows is being played in Germany and now that person's writing something. It just, you have
For
no
real.
clue. And it probably helps if you would have known ahead of time that this was written for you or with you in mind. Are you the type of person that takes pressure and it makes the diamond? Or are you I'm the type of person, if somebody's like, I want you for this, I'm like, oh, really? Versus the person that they're like, we don't want you for this. I'm like, oh, well, let me show you something. Like, I'm more the tell me no, I'm
Yeah,
going to prove you wrong. Are you the type of person that if you would have gotten that information ahead of time, that would have felt like more pressure?
I'm definitely someone who loves a challenge, but I don't really, if I'm being honest, I really don't know how it would have informed things other than like, there's a chance I could have phoned it in. There's always a chance, but I do try to really bring it with every audition. That's why I send them all to my manager. And I'm like, what do you think? Is this bad? Is this good? Does this have room? But I think for me also, if I had known that before, I might have made the character just like what I did in AP Bio. And I was really trying to separate from that and show a bigger range of what I could do. And it was so interesting because I did a couple different versions of that first audition. Like I did one that was
Yes.
super
What was the
stoic.
what was the audition scenes you had for this?
Yeah, so in the first season, there it was a couple scenes, and it was like there were three actually, and one of them we ended up using for a chemistry read over Zoom.
Mhm.
And that was between my character Tina and Barry, who is like part of the CIA crew, but he's got a little crush on her in the first season. But one of the scenes was actually like my first one where I come in and I tell everyone, like, I'm an essay analyst. These are all this is all the jargon I've got for you.
All the jargon.
All the jargon, words I don't know the meaning of, but I looked them up at the time just to make sure I sounded somewhat put together. And then one of them was a slightly higher stakes version of the same thing where it's like I'm trying to convince the team to like follow my lead on something. I'm like, and these were all scenes that were in the show. So I did it a couple different ways because I knew it was called Untitled Arnold Schwarzenegger Project. And it was also like billed as an action comedy, but it was an hour long. So I was like, what does that mean?
Confusing. So confusing.
I had no idea. And so I did it a couple different ways at first. And I like just was super like not sure which direction to go. I was like, well, maybe I should do this super procedural and like really like serious and like down to the brass tacks. And we'll see what happens. But I also did a version that was a little bit like lighter and a little sweeter because I think one of the big things I learned in auditioning is like whether you're playing a mean person or you're playing like the boring, nerdy person, or you think it's boring, you want to make that person likable to the audience, no matter what. Like, even if the person is mean, like, you got to find something that the audience can be like, I like her. I like that bitch. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, that's the challenge a lot of the times, especially when you're like, oh, I'm coming in to be this business person. So I did a lighter version too, where I was like being friendly and a little bit shy and like whatever. And we sent those in and then got a note back from casting being like, could you mix those together in some way? And I was like, okay, sure. They're so different. So I spent a little bit more time with it. I read it, did it for them. And then the showrunner wanted to meet with me on Zoom. And so we had a talk and I'm all made up. So I look a little different than my tape. But also that was a choice I made. I was like, I just want them to see that I can look a little different, but not crazy different, like, within the realm. And that's when he just dropped the season 1 bomb on me that like, he was like, so by the way, you're actually a Russian double agent. So I want you to lean into this. And I actually wrote this with you in mind. I want you to be like, almost like this, like very like put together, like very, sort of like nerdy. You're confident in your stuff though. You're an adult. You're not Sarika who's like nervous about being seen. Sarika being my AP bio character. And then he was like, because at the end, it's going to turn out you're actually a Russian double agent. You're a mole within this group. And I was like, okay, you just spilled that on me. Does that mean I have and he was like, we got to just get Netflix to approve your tape. So I'm going to read with you for your tape just to make sure that we have your look down. And then we're going to send it in. And then because I had done a couple of Netflix series already, then I didn't have to test for it. If I hadn't, I'm sure I would have. But then, yeah, it was.
Well, and even when you read with him dropping that note on you, as an actor, if we read that, a lot of actors tend to want to play the end. Did he want hints of that in there, or did you still have to be in your audition? Are you implementing any of that note in, you being the Russian spy? Or he was like, just so you know where it goes, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard thing to play for sure, but when I thought about it and like I reread the sides and everything, I was like, nobody else knows. And I don't want them to know. If I'm good at my job, I don't want to even drop a little hint about it. So there were other hints throughout the season that I was able to kind of drop a little bit here and there, but I really kept it close to chest because I wanted it to be a shock for the audience too. I wanted to be like, whoa, we liked her. Why is she with the bad guys? What's going on here?
What is happening?
So, yeah. So when I did that audition and I taped it with him, I straight up told him, I was like, okay, I'm going to keep that information and just like throw it away for now. Is that cool with you? He was like, that's exactly what I want. I just wanted to let you know that I really want you for the role. So I was like, okay, great. Like that's wonderful. Like every actor wants to hear that,
Every actor wants to hear that. And then to be working with the showrunner to make your tape, you can't be, I've only heard a handful of audition stories like that, where I think it was Ty Burrell for Modern Family. They did not want him. So the showrunner was like, we are going to go make your tape right now because I'm going to make them see that you are it. And when you have the showrunner that's sitting there and babysitting your tape, there's no way. How are you going to fail? You're like kind of fail proof.
Yeah.
Were you nervous? Were you nervous doing it with him, or how long did it take before? What kind of like working vibe did you guys figure out for the tape?
It was, I actually ended up not being nervous at all at this point. Like I really thought I would be. I was like braced to like, I had my water ready. I was like, you're good. But I think just the moment he and I started talking before we taped at all, and like we just kind of got to know each other a little bit, I was just like, oh, he's such a nurturing person and he genuinely wants me to succeed with this. So I can't really go wrong here. And if he hates it, then we'll redo the tape. If we're doing it and I'm not getting the right direction, he'll tell me, he'll direct it, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And we didn't end up having to do, I think we just did it a couple of times and he just redirected a couple of choices just to kind of, he was like, you don't know what this next episode is, but I do. So I'm going to redirect this so that it makes more sense for that. And it was such a cool, I mean, I've never had something like that before where I read with the showrunner and I was like, oh, that just, it took all the stress of it away. And it just felt like I was playing with him, to be honest with you.
The TV and film landscape, it's constantly changing, but traditional actor training has largely remained the same.
It's focused on a theater model whose main goal is to help you stretch the expression of your instrument. That's why you can have years of training,
From scene study classes to audition classes.
to even an MFA, and still not be able to book a 2-line co-star.
That's why we created The Bridge for Actors.
A collection of tech, craft, and business online courses to teach you the skills that you need to go from a student of acting
To a working actor.
That's a dream. What a dream. I wanted to ask you kind of a tough question, and I don't know if this is something that you could put into words, but as an actor, from the business standpoint, okay, from doing shows where you're living in teenage land, you're living in a world that's been built that you've already experienced and kind of already gone through. What was the biggest difference for you business-wise going from playing in those worlds to now like playing in this adult arena where now you get to really kind of showcase where you are in life right now? What was your, whether it's in craft, like what was your biggest takeaway now getting to do FUBAR?
It's actually so interesting. But when you're playing a teenager on a show, people start seeing you as a teenager behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is so fascinating. And I'd hang out with people outside of work, but while we were at work, it would be like the way people would perceive me was very much, oh, she's a kid. Put the crowd, the kids together. We were all like, we're in our we pay bills and mortgages. Like, what's going on? So there was that aspect of it where I was suddenly on a show where everyone did see me as an adult and treated me as an equal and all of that. But also, you're on a show with these like legends, like you've got Arnold Schwarzenegger in this season, we've got Carrie-Anne Moss and all these like huge names, and they don't like it makes you feel like there's a challenge coming to work every day when you're like, oh, I've been cast in this role that in an age bracket I haven't been seen as before. And I'm working with these people, like I want to nail it. But it's the kind of challenge that I felt like it's really telling. Most of us are not morning people, and all of us were excited to be there 4 a.m. every day. We were like so excited. And we were all like, can you believe we're not morning people? Like I'll be in bed so late in the day sometimes. And I was like, well, here I am. Like I did my homework on this. You can take it for granted sometimes when you're working a lot on a TV show. Like you get to the point where like, especially if you have lesser lines or you're part of an ensemble like AP Bio where you kind of show up and they've changed lines. So you learn to start memorizing on the day. It wasn't that way with FUBAR. I was doing my homework every time. Like I would learn how to say things in other languages and other accents. And it's an action comedy, but I still dove deep into like, Russian intelligence and like what people like how they've infiltrated here. Cause I was like, I'm curious, like what other homages are we paying with the show, and how can I play into that for the audience? Cause that's, for me as an audience member, that would be fun to see,
Absolutely. So that was going to be, I always ask everybody this, and you can either do it on your character in FUBAR, and let's go with second season, because there's a lot that we learned in first season. But I want to talk craft. I want to talk other than reading the scripts. And then you just gave some information of like looking up how to say certain things or bringing in the Russian aspect. But what is your technique for preparation, whether that's for the audition or going to set, other than reading the script? How are you?
Other than reading the script, well,
what's your way in?
I am going to start by mentioning the script because you have to start with that. And I'm going to say, you got to read it not like a script you're auditioning for. I like to read it like a book, like a story. And I just want to know what's happening in there. And I'll read it a few times, just like I'm reading any story. I'm a big reader, so that's easy for me to do. But then it's like about really like letting it sink into me and being like, if I were in this imaginary situation, how would I feel about these things? Like, how would I feel about like, I don't have a boyfriend currently, but in FUBAR I do. How do I feel about this boyfriend? And you're adding in all these elements of like, now I'm playing a Russian spy. And am I two-timing him? Am I not? What's the authenticity there? And well, the reality is he doesn't know I'm a Russian spy yet. So I want to really make this relationship real. How have I acted in the past with my boyfriends? Do I like, and if I really care about this person, what are the biggest thing I think any actor should focus on in any script, in any audition, in any job is the relationships. Whether it's people that you're in the scene with, people who are off camera, it doesn't matter. Your relationships will inform everything. And every time I've gotten callbacks or tests, it's because, and they straight up, like we would ask for feedback and they'd be like, oh yeah, it was really clear she knew who she was talking to, who she was talking about, and how she felt about everyone in it. And then that extends to like your setting, like where are you at? Like it's kind of, it becomes really fun at that point because you're building this like imaginary place for you to play in and creating your version of that world. So it's like you start doing the introspective stuff after you read, you know, whenever I'm reading a book, I'll like throw myself into the story. Like when I would read Harry Potter growing up, I would feel like I was going through the castles with the kids and like exploring after hours. So it's like leaning into your imagination and having fun with it and really figuring out how you feel about everyone in those places and what you want because of those relationships, what you want those people to know about you. You know,
Yes.
whether it's playing something as, you know, black and white as like a Russian spy, or I guess that's more gray area, but whether it's playing something as confusing as a Russian spy or playing someone who's like, I mean, I've read for stuff where it's like the girl's about to break up with the guy, but she loves him so much. And she's like, how do I do this with kindness? And it's like, man, I've been there. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, how do you do that? And like, how do you feel about each person? That really is to me the most important thing. And then everything else I find for me usually will fall into place after that.
I'm so glad you said that because I do so many of these interviews and it's always nice to be reminded of certain things that I think that people overlook. Like some people go into character by the way that they're walking, the music that they listen to. But I feel like for these shows like FUBAR, for procedurals, people always skip over. It's the relationship we're showing up for. And action comedy, we're coming for the relationship. We're coming to watch the relationship. And nothing is more dynamic in comedy than a conflict in relationship. So you have to know who you're in relationship with to make the comedy actually snap. Like it does.
It's so real. And I can't tell you how many shows I watch, even reality shows, which I'm a huge reality fan, where the through line is always, will they or won't they? Will they or won't they? You know what I mean? Like, every show I grew up watching, it's like that's such a through line. And I do feel like it then informs all of those other things like character. Like for me, picking out the clothes is really important so that I feel like I'm in the world of that character. Like, and I've made mistakes with that before. Like earlier on in my career, there was something that I think I was auditioning to play a doctor or something like that. And I was wearing the most low cut top. Like I didn't know any better. I was still figuring it out. And I was like, well, Boobs McGee just entered the building, but
They were a little distracted. They were just slightly distracted. They're like, I would like that to be my doctor. Yes, but like you're right. Absolutely. Having something that actually puts us in that space is really, it helps tell the world. It's all that. Okay, you ready for some rapid fire questions? Because I feel like these will be fun with you for sure.
yes.
Okay, so I have to ask, especially since you're working with Arnold, what's the one tip of advice, acting advice, or even professional advice that he has given you?
Ooh, embrace your team. Know that you are no better than or worse than the people around you. And your team is what makes you. He always says he's not a self-made man, that he got there because of the people around him.
I love that. And I love that.
Everybody.
I mean, look at your whole interview too. Like you've built a damn good team. I do really think you said earlier it's luck. I think it's might be luck in assembling the right team to support you because that's what really makes a career versus a job.
I completely agree. And your team goes past also like your reps and everything. It's like, who's your support system in your life? And do your people in any aspect of this industry or your life, like meet your standards and help you grow into being the person you want to be? That's the most important thing.
That takes my next question. Okay. When you get an audition, who do you call first?
I usually call my mom. I tell her everything. I'm like,
does your mom read with you? Who reads with you usually for your audition?
no, I usually have my actor. My mom has the cutest little accent, but I feel like with some auditions it might be distracting. But and she also says it. She owns it. She's like, I'm not good at this because she'll try to put an affectation on and like try to like act. Just read. So, but I tell her everything because she's my biggest champion.
So I'm sure that's who you call when you get the job. Mom's first. Okay. So
Mom's first. She also knows when I get rejected. She gets everything.
she gets it all. Thank God for moms. Especially after this Mother's Day, I'm like, thank God for moms. Okay. Most memorable first day experience.
My most memorable was actually on my first ever TV job at all, and it was on Grimm on NBC. I
Uh-huh.
had never been on a TV set before. This was one of my first credits in Portland. And I remember walking onto the studio lot and it was just these trucks everywhere and like these sound stages. And I'd done a bunch of indie guerrilla student filmmaking until that point, and it just was so much bigger than anything I expected. And since then, like everything has felt bigger than that. But that was the first time I was like, whoa, this is an industry. This is real.
This is real. I'm here. I'm really here. Okay.
Yeah.
Best rap gift.
Ooh. I actually, from the stunts team of FUBAR this season, because I finally got to do my first stunts this time, which was really fun. They gave me this like really tactical backpack, which was so funny. At first, I was like, what am I going to do with another backpack? But it's come in handy so much for like all my hiking and crazy like adventures that I have out here. It fits everything in there. I was shocked. The best gift ever.
I love some of these rap gifts are incredible. Okay, at lunch, are you in your trailer? You working out? You sitting with the crew?
Depending on the time of the month, I'm either in my trailer or I'm with the crew. Like I'm not usually someone who works out on my lunches. I'm usually there playing like little board games or I'm napping. So, you know.
That's okay. So, favorite actor you've learned from? I kind of queued you up with Arnold. Not that he's your favorite, but he probably is one of your favorites. Yep. Favorite actor you've learned from.
That I've learned from. He is one of my favorites. I would say Glenn Howerton. I was already such a big fan of his to begin with, but he has like so much like spirit and he's so freaking smart with like everything. You see, we always would joke, we'd be like, okay, Juilliard, because he would show up and they would just throw a new line at him and we would always like joke and rag on him with that. But he really can take any line that's like not even funny, the most bland line, and turn it into the funniest thing you've ever heard. And he's so good at listening and responding and doing those things that I've been trying to work on, like relationships with everyone, that I was like, oh, I learned so much about how to be a good actor on set from him, to be honest with you. And
I
that's
love those number ones teach so much. And they just set the precedent. And I think that long-going shows land on how the number one is conducting themselves, how they're actually working, how they're interacting with everybody else, how they're setting it up. Okay, last one. Best on-set game or prank.
Oh, Arnold loves to prank people. He like, it's something about old men and pranks. They just love it. And this is actually while we were doing press for the first season, but we got together our CIA team to like do a big press day. And I kept going, everyone was like, where's Arnold? We don't know. And we're all sitting there in chairs and they have a bunch of pretty trees behind us, but it's in a studio. And I was like, I don't really know what they're going for, but that's cool. And suddenly one of the trees like wakes up. It's like talking to me. And nobody else is jumpy but me. I'm the jumpiest person I know. I don't get scared of scary movies. I get scared of the jump scares in them. Like I'm startled so easily. I screamed so loud. I jumped out of my chair and I ran away. It was Arnold. He was just like, I'm the Austrian oak. Like, come on, I'm an oak tree. And everyone was like, cool. It scared me shitless, to be honest with you. Think about it. But
that's kind of amazing. I've heard some great stories. I love that Arnold's great. Beginning to work with one of the best. Okay. Where can everybody find you? FUBAR, obviously, they definitely need to binge this, but can people follow along with you? Are you on Instagram?
I am. So Instagram is my only social media at this time. I have just Aparna Brielle. And FUBAR season 2 comes out next month. So I'm excited. Yeah.
This was so fun. Thank you for letting me like dig into like different audition processes. Cause like, what a dream the team that you have. If nothing else, my gosh, like you're going to keep on working and working and working. Oh, here's what I want to ask. What's next? Since you guys plan and you're so strategic about pivoting from this to this, you're doing action comedy right now. Mm-hmm. What is the next stretching place that you want to go?
So I'm also really interested in producing, which is something that my team and I've talked about. And I produce a lot of little things and more theater experiences in LA. Like I've done immersive, weird projects. But one thing that I'm really eager to get into is like the thriller world and just dramas in general, more serious
Just bring
roles.
you back to the drama. I love you've gone on this
I just like love
comedic
to
path.
flex. Correct. It's like, and I love it, but I also feel like one informs the other. I do feel like my comedy has made me a better actress because you have to learn how to make something so minor high stakes for you. And that translates to everything. I do feel like getting the chance to work in comedy will make you a better dramatic actor. So I'm curious now if I go back to drama to see how that informs my work now, like how different it feels. And, like I don't want my muscles to go like slack there. I want to flex them a little bit. So we're kind of in that realm right now, just seeing where it goes. But I'll never say no to comedy. I do love comedy. So
you're so good at it. You're so good at it. And I do agree with you. If you can do comedy, you can do anything. You can do anything.
It really changes you as an actor. You suddenly start going, oh, anything's a piece of cake after I had to cry over dropping a mascara tube on the ground. Like, no.
Thank you so much for doing this. This was absolutely a delight to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was such a cool conversation.
Yeah.